Beneath the Arctic ice, the world moves slowly. Light barely manages to penetrate the icy layer, dissolving into pale reflections that vanish into the water. In that icy silence, the ocean breathes with its own rhythm. Currents move between the ice floes as if searching for a path. It sounds like creaking, like fragments tensing and breaking under the pressure of the cold, as if the entire landscape were breathing with it. It is a living body that never stops. Here, silence carries weight. It glides between the currents and sustains everything that dwells beneath the surface. Among these currents, a shadow moves with almost impossible precision. It advances, curves, disappears, and re-emerges in the gloom. She is not alone. Others follow her, aligned, breathing in unison. They are orcas, traveling like fragments of a single mind, united by a language that does not depend on sight. Each click they emit travels through the water, hits the ice, and returns as a map. They do not depend solely on what they see, because they also listen to the world around them, since their world is made of echoes. Where sound returns fastest, they know there is stone or ice. Where the echo fades, there is space. Thus they navigate beneath an icy glass roof that could close at any moment. From this language made of waves, order is born. The group advances in close formation. There is no apparent leader, although decisions flow smoothly. At the front, the older females lead the way, measuring every meter with their ears. The younger ones follow the invisible rhythm that keeps them together. It is a dance without music, dictated by the pressure of the water and the memory of the clan. The rhythm guides them upward, where the ice imposes its own boundary. The ice creaks as they reach the surface. The orcas take turns surfacing to breathe, using the same openings that form in the ice. Each ascent is brief and measured, a precise choreography that conserves the group's energy. The steam rises in the cold air, and for an instant the ocean and the atmosphere seem to breathe at the same time, before everything sinks back in silence. When the echo of that breath fades, the world beneath the ice regains its calm. The water resumes its pulse, and among the shadows something vibrates, faint but persistent. The lead female stops. She emits a short click, then another, and waits. The others follow suit, repeating the pattern. The sounds pass through the layers of water, bounce off the ice, and return with a faint echo, as if they were hitting something soft, almost alive, on the other side of the surface. A few meters away, a seal breathes in an open crevice. Its breath forms a cloud that dissolves into the icy air. They don't see it, they don't smell it, but they feel it. Every air bubble, every blow of their body against the ice is a vibration that the orcas translate instantly. The group organizes itself. 2 individuals move away along the flanks, while 3 others descend, tracing an arc beneath the seal. There is no speed or agitation. It is calculation. The sea grows thicker. The water trembles with the vibration of the intertwining sounds. In this choreography, the attack is not improvised, it is constructed. The seal continues breathing, oblivious to what's happening beneath her. One more breath and her body relaxes. The mother orca positions herself directly below. Her dark, serene eyes gaze upwards. The white of the ice is reflected on her forehead. The group waits for a signal. It gives it with a slight movement of its tail fluke. Then the water ignites. A swirl of bubbles rises, enveloping the seal in a liquid curtain. The surface trembles. But the attack never comes. The seal escapes over an edge, leaving only emptiness and the echo of its flight. The group doesn't disperse. None of the orcas react with frustration. They simply turn around and realign themselves. Hunting was not an act of hunger. It was a lesson. The echo of the escape fades. Over the ice, the light begins to sink. Night descends like a slow tide, enveloping the ocean in shadows. The orcas stay together, barely moving forward. Their dark bodies blend into the water, and only the faint sound of their breathing breaks the silence. The movement becomes a ritual, a constant, gentle displacement that allows them to rest without sleeping completely. One half of her mind is vigilant, the other dreams. In that impossible balance, they float beneath the surface, synchronized, as if sharing a single thought. Sometimes they emit a single click, a brief note that dissolves among the layers of water. There is no response, only the echo. It is their way of reminding us that they are not alone. Time passes immeasurably beneath the ice. The current rocks them with an ancient rhythm, and the ocean breathes around them as if watching over their rest. In the distance, the ice murmurs and the darkness begins to dissipate. When the first glimmer of light filters through the cracks in the ice, the orcas are already on the move, and their rest comes to an end as the ocean awakens once more. The group moves slowly forward, breaking the silence of dawn. Among them, a young woman moves a few meters ahead, ascending towards the surface. It strikes the water with its tail, and the sound expands like a heartbeat in the calm. The mother catches up to her and gently brushes her with her flank, guiding her back to the group. The touch is enough. Order is restored. The group moves eastward, following a corridor where the ice breaks up as the light reaches it. The sea slowly parts before them, as if acknowledging their passage. As the day lengthens, light filters through the icy patches, and the sound of icebergs breaking apart heralds food in the distance. Everything moves to the rhythm of the tides in an order that needs no haste. The water advances between the blocks, dragging fragments of ice and foam. And in that movement, something new begins to emerge. The surface trembles, barely perceptible, as if the ocean were preparing an opening. In the distance, a crevice stretches between the ice sheets. On it, a seal rests, exhausted after hours of swimming. She has sought respite in that fragment, a place where the air is easier and the cold less cruel. Her fins barely move, and each exhalation leaves a white cloud that vanishes with the wind. Beneath the ice, orcas sense their presence before they see it. They don't hear the body, but rather the vibration that the ice transmits with each breath, with each slight movement on the ice floe. They approach without breaking the formation, following that invisible pulse that guides them to the surface. The surface of the ice remains motionless, though beneath it, everything is being prepared. The group lines up in a semicircle, adjusting their position with silent precision. The first thrust doesn't seek contact, only to test the ice's resistance. The impact travels beneath the surface like liquid thunder, and the sheet vibrates, but it doesn't give way. The seal turns its head uneasy, not understanding where the sound is coming from. It waits a few seconds, listens to the silence, and settles back down. Perhaps he thinks it was the ice or the wind. The danger still has no form. A second, more precise impact shatters the structure. Water surges in a compact wave that lifts the edge of the ice, and the seal slides, skids, tries to hold on while the orcas circle with mathematical precision. The next wave, higher and denser, drags her out to sea. Underwater, the light fragments. The seal spins desperately, but the group has already surrounded it. A burst of foam shakes the surface. The first orca bites, not to kill, but to immobilize. The second one cuts off the escape from below. The third one attacks from the flank, and the blood mixes with the bubbles, making the water thicker, redder. Then stillness. The white eddy slowly dissolves into the current, and the ocean regains its calm. The ice's strategy is not imposed by force, but by synchronicity. In that tranquility, the group remains united, still moving in unison. No orca hunts alone, because the Arctic does not allow for isolation. Everything depends on the echo that returns in time, on the exact moment when the group moves as a single body. The sea grows still. The bodies drift slowly away, leaving behind the muffled echo of the hunt. The bubbles rise in fine spirals, and the water regains its calm as if the ocean also needed to rest. Finally, the orcas gather in open formation, moving unhurriedly. They brush against each other's flanks as they pass, confirming their presence, maintaining the invisible bond that unites them. The older female leads the way, but there is no longer any urgency, because in the Arctic, after food comes stillness. Under the bluish twilight, social life rearranges itself. The youngest play among themselves, imitating movements, rehearsing the turns they will one day use to hunt. The adults watch, emitting soft clicks, low notes that travel through the water like sonic caresses. There are no words, but there is a lesson. The group drifts along in a hypnotic calm. The current seems slower, and something different floats in the water, a faint vibration that runs through them all. It's not a threat or an echo of hunting, it's something else. Then something changes in the group. The orcas begin to approach, first slowly, then with an intention that the water amplifies. Around it, the circle closes with silent precision, while the water thickens, as if the ocean were concentrating all its strength at that point. In the heart of the group, the mother bends over and her body trembles. A slight, restrained movement announces the moment. From her emerges a small shadow, still enveloped in the warmth of new life. The water shudders, the light fragments, and the hatchling is freed, descending just a few meters before being received. One of the females propels her upward, and the group accompanies her ascent as if the entire ocean were participating in the effort. The surface opens. She breaks through the water and breathes. For the first time, the sea recognizes her as part of its own pulse. Below, the group remains gathered. The mother approaches, touches her with her snout, recognizes her. The current is filled with deep pulses, soft clicks, vibrations that sound like singing but are not. It is something older, something that water understands without words, and as the ocean falls silent once more, the question hangs in the icy air. What other hunter dares to challenge the realm of the orcas in these restless waters? Amidst the liquid shadows, a figure glides with a calmness that promises no peace. Its long, flexible body moves effortlessly, barely touching the water. The mottled skin blends in with the reflections of the ice, and the dark, frontal eyes seem to measure everything. In these waters, few animals dare to challenge him. He is a hunter who needs neither pack, nor speed, nor noise, only opportunity. It is the leopard seal, the solitary predator of the Arctic, master of absolute control over every movement. Beneath the ice, it moves silently, tracing an invisible path around a drifting plank. The current guides her, gentle, enough to keep her moving effortlessly. Every crack, every air opening is etched into her memory. Above, a group of penguins huddles together on the ice. They are trusting, methodical creatures, confident that the danger has passed. But in the Arctic, danger never goes away, it just waits. Among them, a female separates herself from the group. She has been hunting for hours, gathering tiny fish to feed her young that await her among the rocks. She is unaware that beneath the ice that crunches under her feet, an eye follows her from the darkness. The seal remains motionless, hidden beneath the ice. It doesn't need to move. It lets its prey approach out of habit, not carelessness. In its world, patience decides who lives and who dies. Silence reigns over the water. Nothing stirs, nothing breaks the surface. Only a thin trail of air betrays the waiting. A bubble detaches and rises slowly. A second later, the water explodes in a sudden flash. The seal bursts forth from the depths with impossible speed. Its body curves as it emerges, and its mouth opens in a precise line. The long, sharp teeth catch the penguin in a single movement. The bird's screech fades into the water, and a swirl of bubbles marks the end of the attack. From a distance, the group of penguins reacts immediately. High-pitched cries cut through the air as the group scatters in all directions, diving clumsily among the ice fragments. In seconds, the shore is empty. A reddish patch spreads across the surface. The seal ascends with its prey held in its jaws and shakes it forcefully against the ice. The sound is sharp, final. The water turns blood red and small fragments float among the ice shards. From afar, some birds begin to approach, drawn by the metallic scent of the food. Sated, the seal remains motionless on the edge of the ice. Around it, the water retains a faint reddish hue, and a few dark feathers swirl slowly in the current. His breathing becomes deep and slow. The vapor of his breath rises and mixes with the mist as the ice closes in again on the trail. For a moment, everything seems to stop. Only the wind moves, carrying ice dust across the surface. The seal squints its eyes as if searching the reflection in the water for something it doesn't quite understand yet. In that trembling glow, her silhouette is divided, half shadow, half light. Beneath that image, an invisible question forms, suspended between air and sea. What drives the solitary hunter to perfect his art until survival becomes indistinguishable from solitude? The wind dies down and the ice seals the surface once more. Beneath that barrier, the ocean holds the answer, hidden among currents that never cease to move. On the horizon, the Arctic stretches out like a borderless plain. Silence is not emptiness, it is living matter. Every rising bubble seems deliberate, every shadow that crosses beneath the ice serves a purpose. In these extreme waters, where temperature decides who breathes and who doesn't, the leopard seal represents the most precise way the Arctic has found to sustain hunger, because its body wasn't created for speed, but for efficiency in hunting. Its strength is concentrated in its back and hind fins, which propel it with a single movement capable of conserving energy even in the densest waters. Its movement is not straight, but undulating. Each turn takes advantage of the water's resistance as if it were an ally. It can stop, turn, and move forward in a single fluid sequence without creating turbulence. That precision turns immobility into camouflage and movement into an ambush. This design finds balance in the long, flexible neck, which allows it to react to the slightest flash, follow a shadow, and correct its course with surgical precision. In the final moment of the attack, that flexibility combines with the strength of the jaw. The curved, serrated teeth complete the tool. When it bites, it doesn't tear, it twists. The spiraling motion rips through the flesh with the precision of an ice blade. Each tooth fits into the next, trapping the prey and leaving it no escape. There's no frenzy or waste, just perfect mechanics that turn the hunt into a precise sequence. Nothing is superfluous, nothing is missing. Its skin, mottled in shades of grey and dark, reflects the flecks of ice. From a distance, its silhouette vanishes. This invisibility is its greatest advantage. The water conceals her. The current carries her away without her having to move. Only her eyes betray her presence. Two fixed points that shine with the patience of one who has no need to hurry. That stillness in the gaze is the direct consequence of an anatomy designed for stalking. With this physical advantage, the species developed a rather unique hunting strategy. In an environment where food could be scarce for weeks, this predator had to overcome the shortage through methodical and solitary means. It hunts silently, without noise or haste, and shares no territory or helps others. Solitude ceased to be a flaw and became its main tool. The precision that defines him is not an isolated individual trait, but the result of generations who perfected the stalking technique. It comes from a lineage of humble hunters, seals that once fed on fish and krill. But time, scarcity, and the cold shaped its destiny. Only those capable of biting harder, waiting longer, and moving with less effort managed to persist. The others were left behind, buried under centuries of ice. This is how the solitary hunter was born, not as a choice but as a necessity. There's something ancient in his gaze, not cruelty but pure calculation. Every decision obeys the logic of survival. There's no room for error. Every mistake is paid for with hunger. Beneath the ice, the seal moves like a liquid shadow. Every flap of its flippers is measured. Every curve of its body responds to the shape of the water. It doesn't swim, it glides. It doesn't hunt, it reads. The environment is a language only she understands. The vibrations of a distant fish, the change in pressure when a penguin emerges, the distance between the air and the prey. On the surface, other seals rest together, sharing the warmth of the group. She does not. Isolation is both her defense and her downfall. If she approaches others, she will be rejected or attacked. Her reputation travels faster than her shadow. When hunger forces it to move, the ocean becomes its domain. Unlike orcas, which communicate and hunt in groups, the leopard seal needs no allies. Every move he makes is a carefully crafted strategy. His strength lies not in cooperation but in absolute control. But that perfection comes at a price. During the hours when the sea is still, the seal settles on a patch of ice and remains motionless. His breathing is slow, barely visible. The bluish light of the polar sun tints his body with metallic tones. For a moment she seems asleep, but she isn't. Calm is her refuge and also her limit. The horizon, immense and empty, reflects no sound. In that absolute solitude, the predator seems more fragile than powerful. The specialization that gave it the advantage also ensnares it. It cannot form packs, it cannot hunt cooperatively. Its body is made to withstand the cold, but its mind is condemned to waiting. That is the paradox of its existence. The more perfect it becomes at hunting, the less prepared it is for everything else. The sea remains still for a few moments, as if it too were holding its breath. For a moment it seems as if the ocean belongs to him again, although nothing in the Arctic is absolute. Everything that reigns does so for an instant. Silence stretches between the icebergs, and beneath that silence throbs a question. What happens when the predator becomes the prey? Beneath the surface, the sea holds a deep murmur, almost a pulse. The leopard seal senses it before it hears it. It's not sound or shadow, it's a vibration that travels through the water and touches its entire body. He leaves the ice with a slight movement, as if descending out of habit rather than fear. He glides beneath the icy layer and the world turns blue and dense. She tenses up. There is no fear in her reaction, only the certainty that something bigger is moving on the liquid horizon. The echo returns, closer, a deep, multi-toned song, the ocean's answer to its earlier question, orcas. Instinct guides her through the fragmented ice. She moves with the precision of someone who has learned to disappear before being seen. The surface peeks through the gaps in the ice. The air burns in his throat. He breathes. His whole body vibrates with a silent alertness. For a few minutes, nothing happens. The sea is still again. The danger dissipates or hides. In the Arctic, both things are the same. There, beneath the ice, nothing is permanent. Every creature that inhabits these waters occupies a borrowed space. The seal knows this. It hunts because it must. But it also understands that someone else is watching it. The hierarchy is not written, it is rewritten with every tide. Orcas dominate the open space, seals the ice, penguins the edges where the sea breaks into foam. Everything seems balanced, but it's a balance that trembles at the slightest change. Water is her territory and her mirror. In it, she sees reflected both her perfection and her limitations. Her body, shaped by millions of years, allows her no other life than this. She is both hunter and fugitive, mistress and prisoner of the sea itself. She ventures deeper into the liquid gloom. The cold envelops her like a memory. Each hunting cycle, each thaw, each silence are repetitions of a story that never ends. Between the cracks in the ice, a faint glow pierces the darkness. It is not the reflection of the ice, but the promise of change. The water feels different, lighter, less harsh. Tiny particles float suspended, moved by a warm current. The seal stops, as if it understands something invisible. Winter is beginning to ease. The ice breaks into sheets that sway to the rhythm of an awakening sea. The sound changes. It is no longer a deep lament, but a murmur. Temperatures rise by just a few degrees, but in this world that's enough to alter the fate of thousands of creatures. The sun, which for months had barely touched the horizon, now rises decisively. The clarity lasts longer, the air is filled with flashes on the surface. For the seal, change doesn't mean relief. Where the ice melts, prey disperses. Where the sea warms, boundaries shift. What was once a refuge has now become a risk. Nothing in the Arctic celebrates summer, it simply adapts to it. She lies back on a platform that will soon cease to exist. Around her, the ice creaks with a dull sound, like a weary heart. On the horizon, the sea begins to open new channels that extend as far as the eye can see. Close your eyes for a moment. The air is softer, the light less cold. For a moment you seem to rest, but it is only the calm that precedes change. The balance repeats itself again and again. The hunter survives but does not dominate. His strength is temporary, but his permanence is an illusion. Every movement is conditioned by what the ice decides to preserve or give away. As the sun reaches its zenith, the seal slips back into the water. Its form disappears amidst golden reflections. The sea closes in around it once more as if it had never been there. But when the ice melts and the sun returns, what remains of a kingdom built on cold? In the blink of an eye, the sun has decided to no longer hide itself. For weeks on end, its light remains suspended above the horizon, slowly rotating, as if time had forgotten to move forward. In the Arctic, summer has no nights, only a continuous clarity that blurs the shadows and alters the pulse of all living things. Under that endless light, creatures begin to move. Some thrive, others hide as the ice retreats to the edges and reveals a land that, for a few months, seems to awaken. The tundra blooms with a brief, ephemeral green, but enough for the cycle of life to begin again. At the edges of the ice, the waters part. The rivers, freed from confinement, rush powerfully towards the sea, carrying sediments and nutrients that had remained sealed for months. In these currents, plankton revives. and with it return the fish that will feed thousands of species, while the coasts fill with movement and common seals emerge in large groups to occupy beaches and sandbanks that were recently inaccessible. During the winter, survival has forced them into isolation under the ice and in deep waters, where the cold limits every movement, but now the heat changes the rules and bodies cluster together. Contact is possible again, and the breeding season begins. The females, after a gestation of almost 11 months, give birth on the wet sand, where the newborns breathe for the first time under a sun that is still strange to them. The air is fresh, but time is short. In the Arctic, birth is not a beginning but a reprieve. Each offspring depends on the warmth that will soon vanish, on an environment that grants only a few months' respite before closing in again. Life flourishes against the clock, sustained by the urgency of summer. From a distance, the males patrol the shore, alert to any intruder of their species. They are not looking to hunt, but to hold on to the space that summer grants them. Facing each other, they raise their necks, arch their bodies, and emit deep grunts that blend with the sound of the waves. Sometimes they chase each other for a few meters, other times they simply observe each other until one gives way and dives. They are brief, almost ceremonial duels where strength is measured in resistance and gaze. During the summer, competition is defined by presence, not bloodshed, and clashes dissolve before they escalate into violence. The tension doesn't break down, it transforms. Here, violence doesn't disappear, it just changes form. Conflict becomes an ordered language, an agreement that avoids attrition. In a place where every wound can cost energy, heat, or time, fighting to exhaustion would be a death sentence. Strength is shown by holding it back. Neither seeks to destroy the other. It is enough to be seen, to assert oneself in the space for an instant. Beneath the apparent calm, every movement responds to a law older than ice, a law that dictates who can remain when abundance ends. Farther out atop the cliffs, the guillemots return. After months over the open ocean, each one finds the same fragment of rock where it was born. There are no visible marks, but the memory of the wind guides them. The journey has been long, thousands of kilometers across a sea that never stopped. They return thin, covered in salt, but precise. The entire colony seems to vibrate in unison, dark bodies, narrow wings, sharp cries that fill the air with an insistent echo. Warm air currents lift salt dust, and the birds read them like a map. They follow them, turn and return. Every turn, every scream responds to the pulse of the food. Beneath them, the sea opens in silvery flashes. Schools of fish rise following the krill currents, and birds dive, slicing through the surface with pinpoint precision. Flight and water merge in a single gesture. In a matter of seconds, they return to the air with their beaks full, leaving a trail that the wind immediately erases. It is a short cycle, but enough to sustain the entire colony. For days, the air is filled with comings and goings. The birds hunt without pause, and the entire colony feeds on this incessant rhythm until food begins to run out and the chicks claim their turn. On the highest edges of the cliff, the chicks wait. Their small bodies tremble in the wind rising from the sea, and although they cannot yet fly, they must hop. The fall is not a mistake, but destiny. The adults call to them from below, and one by one they launch themselves, opening their wings mid-flight, skimming the waves before plunging into the water. There their parents await them, ready to guide them through the foam to areas where food is plentiful. The leap is not a farewell, it is a beginning. For a few weeks, the air and the sea are one and the same. The noise blends with the waves, and the boundary between flight and water dissolves. But what happens below, when above, everything seems so full of life? Deep below, the show goes on. The summer light penetrates deeper than ever and awakens what seemed dormant. The water fills with tiny sparkles, millions of suspended organisms that transform the ocean into a living substance. Plankton blooms in dense green clouds that drift with the currents. It is the invisible food that sustains everything else, the initial pulse of the chain that keeps the Arctic alive. Schools of fish emerge from the shadows to feed on this abundance. Currents gather them in luminous eddies, where each body seems to reflect a fraction of the light falling from above. For an instant, the ocean becomes an inverted sky, and amidst that radiance, the giants appear. Humpback whales migrate north, following the trail of krill and tiny fish that multiply with the arrival of warmer weather. Every movement is slow yet precise. They advance as if the water obeys their every step. When they hunt, they do so in groups. They circle beneath their prey, release a ring of bubbles, and then ascend with their mouths open, catching hundreds of fish in a single burst. It is an ancient choreography, inherited from generations who learned to read the tides as a language. Their songs cross the ocean and mingle with the echoes of the ice. Not a single note is lost. The sound travels for miles and transforms the water into a space for communication. Each call marks distance, orientation, or desire. Some whales return to sing in the same areas where they were born. Others cross from one ocean to another, following invisible routes that only they remember. But even here, where everything seems orderly and abundant, the balance is precarious. In the deepest darkness, calm transforms into vigilance. Arctic sharks move among those shadows. Their pace is slow, so slow it seems untouched by time. They don't follow migration routes or seasons. They stay put. While others flee or return, they continue their silent advance, as if the sea were swirling around them. Their bodies, covered in rough grey skin, are archives and memories. Some have witnessed hundreds of centuries of ice and thaw, entire generations of whales, seals, and humans. Every move he makes is measured precisely by patience. In summer, the waters teem with life, but for them, nothing changes. Food arrives on its own, carried by the currents, by the remnants of what was once abundant above. There is no hurry or strategy, only waiting. Their hunt is not a chase, but an encounter. When they bite, the act seems more like a consequence than a decision. Summer doesn't erase the struggle, it only disguises it. On the outside, the sea seems like a tranquil body, but beneath its surface, every being competes for one more moment of abundance. Water keeps its own silence, a silence that weighs more than any sound. When the light rises and the sea reflects back to the sky, the heat extends beyond the coast. The ice begins to melt in the inland valleys, where water carves new channels and the ground breathes for the first time in months. There, summer finds its first witnesses. On those wet plains, the reindeer move forward in search of pasture. The soft ice sinks beneath their hooves, and the ground becomes a liquid trap. Even so, they keep moving. Their journey is not a choice, but a collective memory that guides them toward the valleys where summer allows the first shoots to grow. The herds stretch out in endless lines. The females and young lead the way, the males bring up the rear. Every meter traveled is a negotiation with the terrain, a constant adaptation to the ground that changes beneath their bodies. They seek new routes, but the melting thaw erases the old paths. The young fall behind, the old give way. Summer is their turning point. In these weeks, more than just the year's food supply is decided. Here, the endurance of each individual, the leadership of the males, and the continuity of the herd are all put to the test. It is a short time, but everything that will come depends on him. From the plains trod by reindeer to the farthest reaches of the tundra, life spreads with the speed of a spark. The air vibrates and hums, each newly formed puddle becomes a world. From that humidity swarms are born that cover the horizon. Mosquitoes and horseflies emerge in thick clouds, and small mammals like lemmings and mice take advantage of the invisible feast that the heat offers them. Beneath the damp moss, where the soil still holds the icy breath of winter, they burrow, store, and multiply. In this brief respite, excess becomes the norm and stillness impossible. But too much light also comes at a price. Species that depend on darkness or ice lose their advantage. Some seals must dive deeper to find food, while others, accustomed to resting on solid ice, are exposed in open water. At sea, predators change location. Orcas move away to colder waters, searching for prey that migrate with them. Balances are disrupted, territories are redrawn. Summer offers no rest, only a different form of resistance. Social dynamics are also altered. Males compete for dominance of coastal territories. Females defend their young with unusual ferocity. On the surface, everything seems calm, but underneath you can feel the incessant pulse of life pushing forward. As the days go by, the tundra transforms. The green shoots wither quickly and the soil dries out. Insects dwindle and the sounds begin to fade. The bird colonies that once covered the cliffs are preparing to leave. The chicks grow, spread their wings, and try their first flight in the cold wind. On the coasts, seals teach their pups to dive deeper. Reindeer begin their slow return to the regions where ice is starting to reappear. The whole cycle folds back on itself, as if summer were just a breath between two silences. And when the sun begins to dip back towards the horizon, the golden light of sunset covers the open sea. Calm returns, but it's not the same. Abundance fades, and with it, the illusion of lasting equilibrium. Summer in the Arctic is not a season, it's a respite. And when the eternal day begins to wane, silence itself poses a question that floats over the illuminated tundra. During these weeks of abundance, many prosper. But what about those who depend on ice to survive? The answer lies hidden at the edge where sea and sky merge. There, where the thaw advances relentlessly, the landscape fragments and certainty vanishes. Nothing around him is solid for long. The ice that once connected bays with channels now floats in fragments that spin on themselves and separate with the tide. The polar bear moves in a straight line because the straight line is the only thing it remembers. Swimming isn't anything extraordinary for him. It's his new routine. He moves through the water with slow, effortless strokes. With each stroke he measures a distance that never ends. Under the flat glare of the day that never fades, the sea becomes a boundless plain where there are no paths or scents to follow. At times he finds rest on a slab so thin it's like a mirror. He climbs with effort. The ice gives way beneath his weight and emits a muffled groan that is lost in the wind. The white beast breathes and lets water trickle from its thick fur. There is no real rest here, only a brief pause that gives no energy back. From the distant shore come reflections that no longer signify land. They are mirages of warm air on a liquid horizon. Where he used to hunt, a memory still lingers, but it's no longer useful. His body gives him away. His ribs show through his skin. His fur has lost its clean whiteness and now has a yellowish tint that isn't dirt. It's the time spent in the water. The layer of fat that should support it until the new ice forms is thinner than in other years. Each summer begins early and ends late. The hunting platform withdraws, leaving the predator in a territory that offers it nothing. It is not the presence of an enemy that weakens it. It is the absence of that which defined it. A faint scent drifts across the surface. The wind carries it in irregular lines that break and disappear among the fragments of ice. It's not visible, but the bear recognizes it. It's the trail of a seal. His body tenses. He slides to the edge and stealthily returns to the water. The sea closes behind him, leaving only a ripple. It disappears under the broken ice plate and advances in a low dive, with its head aligned with the ice line, and moves slowly so as not to create waves. Every meter gained depends on the edge not creaking prematurely, because hunting demands a stillness that summer does not respect. The seal lies stretched out on a tongue of ice that floats to the rhythm of a gentle swell. It breathes at regular intervals, and each exhalation draws a small cloud that vanishes. The bear judges the distance and stops. Absolute silence is its only remaining advantage. It pushes off with its hind legs and is now just a leap away. But a tiny sound betrays the weight accumulated in the ice crust. It's not a bang. It's a dry crack enough to break the silence. The seal turns its head and with a quick gesture glides into the water like a falling shadow. The strike comes too late. The claw cuts across the surface where there is no longer any prey, and only raises a pointless wave. The turbulence slows it down. The body sinks again with the wasted momentum. The bear tries to follow the trail, but in the open water the seal becomes a swift ghost. There is no channel to enclose it, no bank to contain it. Two bubbles rise far away, then nothing. The water returns to its calm as if the scene had never occurred. But he does not give up, because doing so, at least for a few hours, would be a death sentence, so he decides to swim again. 10 minutes, half an hour, maybe more. Breathing becomes shorter, and with each exhalation a thin vapor emerges that the wind instantly snatches away. The heart works with stubborn regularity, but reserves are few. Fat protects you from the cold, not from hunger. And hunger doesn't forgive strategies. It changes decisions. It forces you to take risks you wouldn't have taken before. Chasing in open water is a gamble that rarely pays off, however. The polar bear persists. In the distance, a shallow gravel shoal emerges from the puddles. The bear steers its swim toward it and arrives with a final movement that seems to be ripped from the bottom. It crawls along the wet slope. Its claws seek traction on smooth, rolling stones. He remains still for a long minute, his head down and his eyes half closed. That rest is both painful and soothing at the same time. The slanting late summer sun stretches shadows that offer no shelter. A mineral scent hangs in the air, devoid of promise. In another year, I would have skirted the compact edge of a continuous pack. I would have confused the prey with a sequence of pauses and advances that the snow cushions. I would have used my advantages without haste. Now any touch produces a sound that alerts. Every edge vibrates before the attack. The efficiency for which it is built depends on an architecture that falls apart. Nothing in its body is wrong. Nothing in its world is the same. A flock flies high in a diagonal line and disappears to the west. They offer no food. They offer an image of movement that underscores the stillness of the predator. The bear straightens its neck and sniffs again. The air carries salt and warm moisture. It also carries the certainty that the nearest ice is too far away to risk another ambush today. There are no signs of carcasses, no remains to steal from other hunters. In these times, misery is common to all, and those who make mistakes pay dearly. From the water comes a dull rumble, not thunder. It is the collapse of a tectonic plate that splits in two and drifts like a door opening to nowhere. The bear raises its head and looks at the emptiness behind it. That gap will grow with each tide until it becomes a channel. The animal's mind does not formulate abstract conclusions. Even so, it acts as if it knows them. It lets itself fall back into the sea and searches for another route with a patience that has no alternative. Sometimes the resistance isn't noticeable. It's just that minimal impulse that keeps it from staying still. The bear swims again, hugging a belt of broken ice that snakes toward a more stable tongue. Every now and then it stops and lets buoyancy do its work. Then it picks up speed again. On the surface, its skin glistens with a film of water that trickles down to its tail. Beneath the shine lies muscle honed by scarcity. Beneath the muscle lies a reserve that dwindles day by day. A dark back cuts across the mirror in the distance, and for a second the bear's entire body tenses. It is not prey. It's another bear moving in the opposite direction, looking similar, thin, silent. Both animals stare at each other without approaching. There's no point in arguing over something that isn't there. Everyone goes their own way. Loneliness here isn't a choice. It's the only way to avoid conflict when food is scarce. At dusk, a cold current descends from the north and the wind changes texture. The sea becomes choppy with short waves that make it difficult to navigate by smell. The bear attempts one last advance towards a thicker plate that cuts out an irregular silhouette. He reaches it and climbs straight up with visible effort. He lies down to the right to avoid putting weight on the same side twice. Stay still with your nose to the wind. Take a deep breath, exhale, and wait. The eyes remain open in a state that is neither sleep nor wakefulness. Exhaustion settles the body. Memory adjusts what remains of the strategy. The real night hasn't returned yet, but the light cools and leaves a metallic glint on the water. The bear listens and smells and thinks with its nose. If a shadow judges the distance incorrectly, it will try again. If nothing happens, it will continue conserving energy. There's no epic quality to this plan. It's biological mathematics. In the final days of summer, the great ice hunter learns to fail without giving up. Life here doesn't reward decisiveness. It rewards those who can wait and try again when the sea allows. Winter will come and bring back the platform that powers your body. If he arrives with sufficient supplies, he will survive. If he doesn't arrive in time, everything he knows how to hunt will be left on the other side of a liquid border. At the other end of the territory, a different energy awakens with the same light. It's not strength, it's speed. It's not size, it's small calculation. Some creatures discover in this icy void a favorable window where they can move silently and grow without pause. The landscape seems still, but beneath that calm, a different pulse ignites. Something breathes at the boundary between the grass and the snow, where life changes scale and silence becomes an advantage. Who truly benefits from this clear stretch of the year while the big players gradually lose ground? In the endless plains of the Arctic, where the wind carries whales of ice and the tundra awakens under a sun that refuses to set, an Arctic wolf stalks with silent steps. His fangs gleam like daggers. His eyes sweep across the sparse, summer-tinged grass. A white flash crosses the remaining snow, zigzagging like lightning across the tundra. The wolf propels itself forward with precision, a shadow slicing through the air. The Arctic hare responds with a sudden turn, so exact that the wind can barely keep up. In seconds, the balance changes. The predator loses its rhythm, and the white flash fades into the tundra, leaving behind only the trembling of the ice. This hare is no mere prey, it is a living lightning bolt, forged to cheat death in a world that shows no mercy. When summer covers the tundra, its white blanket becomes a risk. It no longer blends in with the snow, but it doesn't flee, it stays and adapts. Its fur sheds with the light, its pulse quickens to the rhythm of the sun that never sets. With each leap, it measures the exact distance between life and hunger. Here, where the landscape seems endless and shadows are scarce, speed is its only form of permanence. It does not dominate this territory, it traverses it. It inhabits it like a spark, knowing that when the cold returns, only its imprint will remain on the newly formed snow. Its compact and austere silhouette seems sculpted from ice itself. In winter, its white fur blends with the snow, a blanket that deceives even the keenest eye. But in summer it turns brown, indistinguishable from the damp earth and moss. This fur not only protects against a flesh-chilling cold, it is a veil that erases its presence, a disguise lent to it by the tundra itself. Their feet, wide and covered with furry pads, do not tread but glide. They are natural snowshoes that run over soft snow without leaving any trace. His eyes, wide open like headlights, detect the slightest movement from hundreds of meters away, while his ears, small but tense, listen to the rustle of a wolf before the wind drowns it out. Every feature of her body tells a story of millennia, an adaptation carved by a landscape that punishes the ordinary. Where there are no trees to hide in or deep caves to take refuge in, the hare has learned to be invisible in the open countryside. When a snow eagle descends, its erratic leaps weave a moving mirage, confusing the talon that seeks meat. In 8 seconds, it digs a burrow in the snow, disappearing as if the earth had swallowed it. If a wolf chases her, her sprint at 70 kilometers per hour traces impossible angles, exhausting even the most tenacious hunter. Her body is not just a defense, it is a declaration that the tundra belongs to those who know how to dance with it. That dance reaches its peak in the summer. Under the eternal sun, the tundra transforms into a feast of moss and ephemeral grass. Hares do not graze randomly. They move in precise shifts at dawn and dusk when long shadows conceal their silhouette and eagles rest on distant crags. Every bite of moss, every sip of damp grass is an act of preparation, an economy of energy that sustains a greater purpose. In these weeks of endless light, the females give birth 6 times, and their young, barely 27 days old, clumsily hop after them, learning the rhythms of the tundra. Those offspring are the ultimate reason for every jump, every hiding place, every run. It is not just the survival of the moment that drives the hare, it is the promise that its lineage will endure, that the tundra will continue to resonate with the beat of its light steps. Each generation inherits a body honed by ice, an instinct that knows wind and snow as allies. The hare does not remain in the Arctic because it is trapped, but because its blood is written for this place, a legacy that could not survive in warmer lands, where faster predators and less familiar climates would make it vulnerable. Their life is a balance between lightness and memory. Each generation inherits the skill of the leap, the calculation of the turn, the intuition of the wind. She doesn't need to flee from danger to overcome it. She anticipates it, evades it, transforms it into dance. The tundra sculpts her to her measure, and she responds by turning fear into movement. In this realm where the ice sings and the light never rests, the Arctic hare is not a victim of the tundra, it is its heir. Every glimmer of its fur, every impossible turn, every cub running under the eternal sun is proof that life in the Arctic finds paths where there are no trails. But while the hare runs to save itself, other creatures run simply for the sake of moving. Their strength lies not in fleeing or hunting, but in the journey. They neither hunt nor hide. They simply advance as if freedom itself were their refuge. In the open plains of the north, where the horizon seems to never end, a silhouette is etched against the wind. Their thick coats billow like an extension of the landscape, and their breath forms clouds that the air slowly disperses. They are the wild horses of the Arctic. Not all of them were born in these lands, but the cold has accepted them as its own for centuries. They are descended from the animals that the Vikings brought from the south, and over time, their bodies transformed. Evolution and adaptation to this new environment was not a choice, but a sentence. Only those who learned to read the climate survived. Their bodies are compact, the muscles are grouped under a double layer of hair that changes with the seasons. In winter, each strand multiplies and forms a coat that withstands the wind as if it were stone, but in summer, the cloak thins, and the brightness of the sun highlights a color between bronze and ash. The Icelandic horse's gait doesn't break the earth, it reads it. It's a short, elastic movement known as tolt, a cadence that keeps the body stable even on ice. While the other animals move clumsily across the frost, they float above it, adapting their rhythm to every irregularity of the ground. The hooves, as hard as the volcanic rock from which they come, strike the ground without damaging it. Each stride is a precise translation of the surface, a silent conversation between the animal and the earth that sustains it. The herd moves in formation. There's no apparent order, but everyone knows where to be. The foals stay in the center, protected from the wind and cold. At the edges, the older mares set the pace. At the back, a stallion brings up the rear. He leads not by dominance, but by memory. He knows the paths of past winters, the routes where the snow softens, the valleys where grass still grows beneath the ice. When the wind changes, it raises its head and snorts. The sound is the signal that keeps the herd together. On the coldest nights, their bodies huddle together, manes intertwine, flanks touch, and warmth is shared freely. The young seek the shelter of their mothers, and the entire group becomes a single mass of vapor and movement. There is no more effective refuge than another living body. When the wind dies down, silence envelops them like a veil. Only their snorts and the rustling of their tails against the air can be heard. It is at that moment that they seem part of the landscape, an extension of a life that does not oppose the climate, but embodies it. The day progresses, and the light slides in oblique lines across the landscape. The horses move toward a plain where the sparse, dry grass peeks through the old snow. With their hooves, they remove the ice and reveal what winter had hidden. They eat slowly, savoring each bite. Around them, the world seems to stand still. There are no visible predators nor any signs of escape, only the wind, which never ceases but here poses no threat. Each calf imitates the gestures of the adults. It stamps its hooves in the snow, raises its head at a distant noise, and seeks its balance when the wind buffets it. They learn by watching, absorbing every movement, as if knowledge floated in the air, not in the passage of time. The sun remains low, casting long shadows. The temperature drops only a few degrees, but at these latitudes that's enough to signal that the cycle is about to begin again. The stallion stops. He raises his head, looks north. There is no visible danger, but the air delivers a message that the others do not yet perceive. He turns around and lets out a short, guttural bellow. The mares follow him without hesitation. The herd changes direction, as if obeying a law that needs no explanation. As they advance, the ground darkens. The grass mingles with ash and stone. Fumaroles from the subsoil release thin plumes of steam. It is the border where cold and heat meet. There, amidst the snow and smoke, the horses resemble figures from an ancient myth. With every step, the earth breathes with them. There is no clear boundary between the animal and the environment, between life and the climate. Everything blends into a silent equilibrium. They belong to no one, but neither do they belong to each other. They are the echo of a past that still stirs, the memory of movement before the border. When the wind rises again, the bodies line up and disappear into the glow of the horizon. The manes merge with the light, and the sound of hooves fades into the distance. And as the clarity of summer begins to fade, the air stands still for a moment, as if the world were holding its breath before the change. The herds dissolve into the mist. Only the sound of the wind remains, rustling through the grass that will soon turn to ice again. Summer fades away without saying goodbye. The air loses its warmth, and the days shrink until they seem like brief breaths of light. On the horizon, the sun stops rising strongly and crawls under an increasingly cold line. There are no marked seasons here, only the rhythm of the temperature that decides when one cycle ends and the other begins. First, the sound changes. The sea, which for weeks remained loose and shifting, begins to harden its voice. The waves lose their mass, breaking into foamy fragments that freeze upon reaching the shore. Then comes the silence, that thick, white silence that covers everything, as if the world were holding its breath before breathing again. The cold doesn't fall suddenly. It advances stealthily, descending from the upper layers of the air. It descends between icy valleys and ancient glaciers, glides over the sea and transforms the surface into a broken mirror. What was once water becomes crystal. What was once earth now sleeps under a crust that does not allow footprints. The Arctic is reorganizing itself. Icebergs, fragments of moving mountains, drift with a deceptive slowness. Their advance is as imperceptible as it is constant. In the cracks of their surface, the wind whistles like a trapped animal. The sea pushes them, separates them, unites them until they form veritable cities of floating ice. Each block reflects the light of a low sun, and the horizon becomes a translucent cathedral. From above, the landscape seems motionless. But beneath that stillness beats a force that never stops. The ocean never ceases to breathe, the glaciers creak from within, the ice expands with a pressure capable of splitting rock. The Arctic doesn't die in winter, it actually awakens. The first to notice the change are the hunters in the north. The polar bear, which during the summer swam long distances in search of prey, is returning to reclaim its territory. The icy platforms previously absent reappear beneath its limbs. There it hunts with precision once more. Every breath becomes a strategy, the smell of a seal under the snow, the sound of a distant breath. The cold, which for others means threat, for him is a key ally for his survival. At the edges of the compact ice, ringed and bearded seals emerge from the crevices. They are not looking for warmth, but for safety. They prefer solid ice because there they can create small chambers where they give birth and nurse their young. When the ice melts, they become vulnerable. When the ice returns, life flourishes. Meanwhile, the sky darkens with a hypnotic slowness. The days shorten to the point where they cease to be days. The sun, tired of circling below the horizon, surrenders to the night. Darkness returns, not as an absence, but as an extension of the landscape. In the twilight, the auroras reappear. They emerge without warning, opening cracks of green and violet light across the ice. They move like tongues of fire that do not burn, illuminating the white with a glow that seems to rise from the earth itself. They are the visual breath of winter. The extreme cold reaches its peak. At 40 degrees below zero, the air ceases to be invisible. Every exhalation becomes tangible. Every sound crystallizes in space before fading away. Time seems suspended, as if the world were awaiting a new beginning. And yet, life persists. On the edges of glaciers, hardy birds nest among the icy rocks. In the depths of the sea where darkness reigns, tiny crustaceans and bioluminescent fish continue their age-old routine. Nothing stops the pulse of the Arctic, it only changes its frequency. Large marine mammals move beneath the surface, following invisible routes dictated by water temperature. The whales return from the south, drawn by the food-rich currents that winter concentrates. In a sea that seems still, abundance is reborn beneath the ice. Above ground, the air hardens once more. Sounds distort, the wind's breath becomes shorter, and the horizon regains its crystalline clarity. In one of the most hostile places on the planet, life doesn't just survive, it thrives. Every creature, from the tiny crustaceans that pulse beneath the ice to the seals that hunt in the twilight, is the result of a patient adjustment that took centuries to perfect. Some organisms slow down, almost to a standstill, conserving energy during months of darkness. Others learn to read water pressure, wind direction, or ice texture to anticipate what's coming. Nothing about them is accidental. Every sense, every reflex, is a precise response to an environment that doesn't allow second chances. The creatures that inhabit this territory would not survive anywhere else. Their fur, which protects them here, would make them slow in other places. The heat would exhaust them, abundance would weaken them. In the Arctic, they are not trapped, they belong. Every fiber, every organ, every reflex was molded by the cold until it reached an exact balance. In each body, adaptation became form and purpose. Skin, hearing, smell, muscles and pulse respond to a single law, a silent order that only ice understands. From that law, instinct is born. It is not impulse but precision, an intelligence that does not react. It anticipates. It predicts the invisible, measures the distance between life and error, and adjusts before failing. Beneath the apparent immobility of the ice, that logic persists. There is no chance, only adaptation. Each species is a perfect equation, the result of centuries that transformed necessity into equilibrium. It is evolution transformed into landscape, the biological memory of the Arctic, which learned to breathe in impossible temperatures. Thus, the land recovers its purest form. Everything returns to its place. What summer scattered, winter gathers. What light spread, night orders. Balance is not by chance. It is memory. The entire Arctic becomes a single organism. The glaciers throb, the wind breathes, the sea thinks. Nothing opposes it, not the cold, not life, not silence. Everything cooperates in a harmony that only winter can sustain. And as the ice closes over the sea, the cold reveals its truth. It is not emptiness, it is heritage. It is the way the Arctic preserves those who have learned to remain. Beneath the snow, the pulse of the world continues to beat, awaiting the next breath of light.